Friends, welcome to my workplace at Ranaghat, West Bengal, India. In this video, I am going to share some tips and tricks of application and removal of B-HEX pupil expansion device. You can see this is a cataract with grade 3 plus or grade 4 nuclear sclerosis. Size of the pupil in this case is about 4 millimeter. I have taken up this case for surgery. By this time all the incisions have been made, and now this is trypan blue dye underneath an air bubble. And now this is a little bit of adrenaline. Let me see if the pupil dilates little more by adrenaline. No, adrenaline had no effect in this case, or very minimal effect. So we have to use some pupil expansion device. Not have to, we can do such cases without pupil expansion device also, but surgery becomes comfortable if we use some pupil expansion device. The antechamber has been underfilled, and now some visco is being injected underneath the iris to make some room for the flanges that will be tucked under the iris. This is the B-HEX pupil expansion device. It is used by B-HEX forceps, 23G forceps. The B-HEX device is taken completely into the anterior chamber, then the leading haptic is tucked, and then the haptic on the left side is also tucked. Yes, we can tuck the left flange. We can tuck the left flange through the main incision itself. Now I go through the left side port and tuck the flange on the right side. Alternate flanges are tucked, and thus the pupil takes beautiful hexagonal shape. It's a very thin device, doesn't need any injector system for its introduction and removal from the anterior chamber. And now the capsulorhexis is done. The size of the pupil is about 5.5 millimeter, and the size of the rhexis is about 5 millimeter. And now hydrodissection is done. The iris is at its original plane. If we use iris hooks, we are going to make 4 openings at least, and then we pull the iris towards the periphery, and the iris also gets lifted up to some extent. Yes, we can minimize it if the incisions are posterior limbal, but even then some amount of lifting of iris occur. And now with B-HEX, the pupil is the iris as at its original plane, and all the steps are as usual. This is direct job. Vacuum is 450, flow rate is 45, and power ultrasonic energy used in this case is 70%. And now all the fragments are emulsified and removed. The chopper in my left hand is a very small chopper. You can call it a micro chopper because it is just a modified Sinskey hook. Sinskey hook is thinner and round, but this chopper is flat on either side. Yes, nucleus management has been done, And now cortical cleanup. Cortical cleanup can be done by bimanual irrigation aspiration. In this case, I have used a 23G Simcoe cannula for removal of cortical matter. Removal of cortical matter is your choice. You can use bimanual irrigation aspiration or coaxial irrigation aspiration, or this simple efficient instrument, a 23G Simcoe for cortical cleanup. Yes, cortical cleanup is almost done. This is the last portion. Yes, and now visco injection is must. We should not attempt hydroimplantation when this pupil expansion device is inside the eye, because for removal of this device we must use visco. So visco has been injected, the antechamber has been filled up, the bag has been filled up, and now this is the trick for IOL implantation. Take the cartridge into the anterior chamber. This is a 2.2 millimeter comfortable cartridge going through 2.8. The leading haptic has gone into the bag, and the trailing haptic is released beyond the flange of the B-HEX ring, which is just in front of the main incision, and it is maneuvered in such a way that it goes into the capsular bag. Otherwise, what may happen is the haptic may press over the flange, which is just in front of the main incision, and the flange may get dislodged and may go under the iris. But no, that's not a big complication. We can get it back. Now this is how we remove the B-HEX. Pull it centrally and then go peripherally, hold at another place if required, and get the device in the anterior chamber and just pull it out. Now we can see some pigment dispersion in the anterior chamber. This is because the flanges that went behind the iris, when they came out, they brought some pigments along with. So these are the pigment in the anterior chamber. This can be very easily removed by IA, irrigation and aspiration. And in this case I am removing all the pigments by Simcoe. Here I go behind the IOL and irrigate some BSS. All these things can be done in bimanual irrigation aspiration also, but I use both. First I use Simcoe and then I use bimanual irrigation aspiration. Here I am irrigating the anterior chamber, and then this is, I can say, over the intraocular lens. Now I am trying to go behind the IOL. Yes, I've gone behind the IOL and irrigating the capsular bag very nicely. And now I use both irrigation and aspiration together, and thus I do a thorough cleaning of visco from antechamber and capsular bag, and my patients are very happy. And I believe if you do this, if you clean visco thoroughly, give some time, your patients also will be happy. There will be no visco-induced raised intraocular pressure. Patient will be very comfortable and will have very good first post-op day vision. Now the side ports are closed by corneal stromal hydration, and then this is the final lavage of the anterior chamber. This is also a routine practice of mine. I always do this, and for the last 10 years I have not found a single case of TAS, that is toxic anterior segment syndrome, and I strongly believe it is because of this practice. Now I check all the wounds and then conclude the case. Thank you very much for your attention. Hope this video will give you necessary tips and tricks of B-HEX use, its application, its removal, how pigment dispersion occurs. Sometimes a little bit of hyphema also can occur. Don't worry at all. It's a very safe, very user-friendly device. If the antechamber becomes shallow at any point of time during its maneuver, just inject some more Phaco. Be a great surgeon and serve your patients with love, respect, compassion, and great surgical skills.